Okay. If you are watching this video, this is a posted live stream. And if you missed the live stream, I apologize. But if you please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, or turn on notifications, that will help you to not miss the live stream, or at the very least, these posted videos. Now, we've been going live every single morning. We've really turned this into like a morning show, giving you guys all of the most relevant details and things surrounding federal operations around the United States. We've really been focusing on Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. And man, do we have some big news for you guys. I've been saying this for a while now. The mayor of St. Paul, first off, she finally made a statement about what occurred in her city. The protest in the church, I think you guys heard about that. To me, that's pretty big news because it's been a couple of days now since that happened, and we had no initial response from her. And again, I'm not trying to call anybody out. This is my plea to you guys. Whenever you listen to your content creators that you listen to, maybe remind them that St. Paul is just as involved with the federal operations that are happening in Minneapolis, and that there is a mayor in St. Paul. It's not only the mayor of Minneapolis, it's not only Governor Tim Walz, there is a mayor there. And yeah, so we're going to talk about that. She actually responded as to how she felt about that church protest. Oh, and she's been subpoenaed. And so has the mayor of Minneapolis. And good morning, everyone. Great to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Please like this stream. It helps out a lot so everybody can see what's going on. I can't do this without you guys. Really, the success of these streams, these videos, it's all because of you guys. Mayor of St. Paul, subpoenaed. Governor Tim Walz, subpoenaed. Mayor of Minneapolis, subpoenaed. Attorney General, subpoenaed. What else? We got J.D. Vance will be going to Minneapolis, so haven't heard too much from J.D. Vance. He is having a kid, though. Congratulations. And we're also going to hear from Pam Bondi. I think that's some pretty big news as well. We haven't been hearing too much about Pam Bondi. Apparently, she's in Minnesota right now. Now, we were also told last night, again, I'm just giving you guys the overview. We were also told last night, within hours, we're going to see people arrested from Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem said that last night. Within hours, we're going to see some people arrested. That has not happened as of right now. I'm hearing it's because a judge won't allow it, but again, that's what I'm hearing. We're also going to hear from Kash Patel. We're going to hear from the president, Chief Bovino, and others. So, let's dig into it. Let us dig into it. Let's start with Kash Patel. Why not?
You have subpoenas out. It's not rocket science. Investigations are done by acquiring records. Investigations are then furthered by putting witnesses in the grand jury and making a presentment for a case, which our partners at the Department of Justice and the Attorney General will do in any case. But let's make one thing absolutely crystal clear. Under President Trump's leadership, he has supplied law enforcement the resources they need to protect our American communities. He has also given us the mandate to enforce the law. And the law is simply this: no one, elected official, private citizen or otherwise, gets to impede and obstruct a law enforcement investigation. No one. And this FBI is committed to working with our interagency and our Department of Justice partners under President Trump's mandate to make sure Minnesota and every other city across this country is safe. And that's why we're having the record year that we're having under President Trump's brilliant leadership.
Okay, and here's the thing. I think Kash Patel really proved his point back in April and May when Judge Hannah Dugan, they did that investigation. She got arrested, has been found guilty as of right now. And by the way, for those of you that are new here, we've been covering the Judge Hannah Dugan case like every single day when that was going on. That story is not over, so if you do want to subscribe for that, I am still waiting to see what's going to happen next, because we still have to figure out whether or not her charges are going to get dropped, or at the very least, the continuation of the trial. So let me know what you guys think about Kash Patel. But yeah, the subpoenas have been dropped. We know that for sure.
To several officials here in Minneapolis, including members of the office of Governor Tim Walz. We will.
And by the way, I do have responses from Governor Tim Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis.
Bring you more information as we get it on those subpoenas. Meantime, the number of protesters out here at the federal building is diminishing every day, it seems. But the war of words between local officials and the Trump administration is only getting stronger. The latest flashpoint, as you mentioned, that protest at a St. Paul church on Sunday, during which several dozen protesters disrupted the service, screaming at members of the congregation. And
okay, so this is the perfect segue. I think by now everyone knows what went down in that church, and honestly, everyone is just waiting to see if somebody is going to get arrested. We know there's an investigation. There's a lot of hype behind this. Again, I will show you the clip where last night Kristi Noem went on television and said, people will be arrested here soon. But I have been waiting forever to see what the mayor of St. Paul had to say about what occurred in her city. We finally have the response. So let's see what she has to say. Remember, this is in her city. A lot of focus was on the mayor of Minneapolis and the governor.
So Attorney General Pam Bondi was in your state today. Unexpected, incredibly rare, and she showed up today. Do you know why she did that today? Was there anything that you're hearing? What's your interpretation of this?
You know, I haven't heard specifically as to the reason why she's here, but it's pretty clear that this administration is sending people in to intimidate us, and we will not be intimidated, as the governor said.
So one of the looming DOJ cases, such that we understand it specifically, seems to be about the protesters who rushed into that church. That was in your city, in St. Paul, on Sunday. They interrupted a service. They said they were there to protest a pastor there who's also a local ICE official. The Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says whatever it was anti-Christian and it was a crime. Mayor, I'm curious how you see this. Do you think that some of those protesters may have gone beyond their First Amendment rights in going into a church like that and broke the law?
I will say that ICE has led the way in their charge of going onto school properties and detaining people from places that should be just as well kept.
Okay, so to me, this was a pretty simple yes or no answer. And I do want to remind everyone, for the context, she is responding to this several days after the fact. I have literally almost every single hour of the day, I have really wanted to see what her perspective was as far as what is going on here. And now this is her response.
People from places that should be just as well kept sacred. And so, we responded the exact same way we would have at any place of worship. That our PD came in, and because this is an ongoing investigation, I can't comment more than that. But I would say we would have handled this in any other way, in any other place of worship, the same way.
Wow, okay.
So I understand what you're saying. Just to be clear, though, at the beginning you were saying, well, they go into schools and sacred places. I mean, is this sort of a situation where if they're doing it, it's okay, then if protesters are doing it, as you see it?
I don't ever believe that it is okay for us to cross the line in which there are spaces in which people have certain rights and freedoms. But I will say that if this government wants us to obey rule of law, that they also need to follow that as well. And that they cannot expect residents who are feeling terrorized and sieged to be operating under any different circumstances or any different rules than they are operating in.
I'm telling you guys, I'm just going to be honest with you. You should not be shocked that you are possibly hearing stuff like this for the first time from the mayor of St. Paul. I actually really blame conservative media for not letting you guys know that this is nothing new. I am not surprised in any way, shape, or form that this is the response. Mainly because before she became the mayor-elect, and we've played it on my channel, she has been very supportive of the pushback, very supportive of the protesters, and not a fan of ICE. We've already gone through that in detail. So I'm just going to be honest with you. I am a little disappointed in a lot of the bigger conservative people, and even Homeland Security at times never talks about St. Paul. And I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but you guys shouldn't be hearing stuff like this for the first time and then be surprised, because nothing is new here. Now, obviously, the Trump administration has been paying attention because, again, she has been subpoenaed. Now, you guys probably saw some of this. I said this for the last 3 days. You're going to be seeing a lot more of this as well. The fact that the president came out and did this, as far as showing everyone what Homeland Security is doing as far as who's being arrested, not being arrested, what the mission is. A lot of this obviously has to do with the funding, passing the bill as far as, giving money to Homeland Security. Let me know if you guys saw this.
People, vicious, many of them murderers. These are all out of Minnesota, just Minnesota. I say, why don't you talk about that more? Because people don't know. Do you want to live with these people? International murder. These are people that are living, if they're apprehended, and either put in jails in their country from where they came, and the countries respect us, and so they actually put them there. In the old days, they didn't respect our country. Biden wouldn't do this because he let them all in. You know, if you didn't...
I cannot recall, I know because so much happens nowadays, was there ever a time where President Biden did something like this, like showed the names and faces of what administrations were like taking care of who they were arresting? I cannot recall that happening. And don't worry, this is not going to be a one-sided stream. We will get to the other perspective as well.
Didn't have open border policies of Biden. None of this, all of the things that all of the time that we spend talking about Minnesota and everything else, most of them are coming from out of the country. And it's been caused by a previous administration. Look at this, one after one. Boy, these are rough characters. These are all criminal, illegal aliens that, in many cases, they're murderers, they're drug lords, drug dealers.
Okay, you guys get it? And that number in Minnesota specifically is about 10,000 people have been arrested overall under the Trump administration as far as how many illegal criminal aliens have been arrested. And I think that number is, so that's 10,000 overall, 3,000 since this federal surge has occurred. So the numbers are very high. Now, this was also making some news as far as the response to this happening from other news sources.
All right, that was a very long press conference that President Trump just held 1 year into his second term in the White House. Almost 2 hours, I think it was, almost 2 hours. And he kept coming back to the topic of immigration, but he was covering a lot of different things in his characteristic weave, although this was sort of a moment that I think stood out. He ended a little bit more energetically, but certainly the beginning where he was not taking questions, not so much.
No, it was, and we noticed it right away. It was very low energy in the beginning, sort of reading, sort of doing a weave, but it almost seemed at some points he was going back to things that he had already addressed, reading them off of the book that he brought out with him. Not clear if he didn't remember that he had talked about them already or if he wanted to go back to them. There is also, over the last nearly 2 hours, as you point out, there's a lot that we need to fact check here because there was a lot of what the president said that was not true.
Okay, so they're claiming a lot of what the president said was not true. That's why this clip was circulating. And is the President Trump, is he the one who really coined that term or made it more popular to be low energy? Not him specifically, but obviously, didn't he always say that Joe Biden was low energy, or he would always call people low energy? I just thought that was interesting that they used that terminology. Not that President Trump owns that, but I think he made it more popular, right? Now, Chief Bovino also did a press conference. We'll just play a little bit of that. It was pretty much a almost mirror image of what President Trump was talking about as far as all the criminals who have been arrested. Again, you're going to be seeing this every single day in your social media feeds. You just are, from both sides.
For too long, residents have been told that enforcing our nation's immigration laws undermines public safety. In reality, the opposite is true. When the law is not enforced, violent offenders remain free. Criminal networks expand, and the community pays the price. Our neighbors, our citizens, our friends pay the price. Rather than confront that reality of which I've just spoken, leaders like Tim Walz or Mayor Fry have relied on heated rhetoric and accusations that distract from the facts.
Okay, so this is like a collective talking point right now from the Trump admin, going in on the leadership. They might know something we don't know. We have to remember, I don't want to use the word they're in cahoots with one another, but obviously they seem to be very confident in that there is a possibility of charges. I mean, there's a reason why they're being subpoenaed. There's a reason why Kash Patel would go on TV and even talk about that. And to my knowledge, Pam Bondi is currently in Minnesota. Maybe not specifically for what's going on with these subpoenas, but possibly for the church protesters. So let's go ahead and look at the responses as far as who's been subpoenaed. I'm letting you know right now, the mayor of St. Paul doesn't really have a response. She doesn't respond a lot. That's one thing I've noticed. I've been covering the mayor for quite a while now. Her response was tagging a Tribune, a local newspaper. That was basically her response. But here's one of the responses.
Office just received a subpoena from Donald Trump's Department of Justice, and he joins me now. I want to start with the subpoena and then ask you about some of the things we're seeing, because that news just broke. Sure. It was reported on Friday night that they would be sending subpoenas out, I think, to Governor Walz, Mayor Fry, and yourself. I believe you have received the subpoena. What can you tell us, and what's your response?
We're going to look it over, and we'll respond according to law. I can tell you, though, they're announcing investigations from all of us, and you mentioned 3 of us here in Minnesota. Actually, they're actually messing with the brand new mayor of St. Paul and the Hennepin County attorney. But
so he's using the word messing with.
They're not investigating the person who ended the life of Renee Good. There's no investigation on that at all. And so it's a little bit ironic, as we're doing the work that we're elected to do by our constituents, standing up for our states, insisting upon the dignity and the rights of the members of Minnesota. They have not done anything close to what they should do when it comes to investigating a homicide. And again, I make no conclusion as to how the case should end up, but they have overtly and very deliberately stated we're not investigating anything. No one in the federal side is investigating the death of Renee Good. Now, explain that.
In fact,
okay, so that is his response, comparing it to the lack of investigation of the Renee Good situation. Again, you guys can leave your comments. Let me know how you feel about that. This is the mayor's response. The Minnesota Star Tribune, that is the article in which the mayor of St. Paul reposted, or that was her response. So if you guys want to see her response, the response was you click on this link and you can read the article. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually read what the mayor had to say. When the federal government weaponizes its power to intimidate local leaders for doing their jobs, every American should be concerned. We shouldn't live in a country where federal law enforcement is used to play politics or crack down on local voices they disagree with. Then he says, in Minneapolis, we won't be afraid. We know the difference between right and wrong. As mayor, I'll continue doing the job I was elected to do, keeping our community safe and standing up for our values. The governor has also responded. Just so you guys are aware, whenever you're looking for a response from Governor Tim Walz, he always uses this template because he posts a lot on social media. Here's what the governor has to say. Mr. President, Minnesota invites you to see our values in action. Come see how communities from all walks of life are working together, and how the spirit of the state refuses to be defined by division or fear. I invite you to join me and others in our community to help restore calm and order and reaffirm that true public safety comes from shared purpose, trust, and respect. But let me be absolutely clear. The state of Minnesota will not be drawn into political theater. This Justice Department investigation, sparked by calls for accountability in the face of violence, chaos, and the killing of Renee Good, does not seek justice. It is a partisan distraction. Minnesotans are more concerned with safety and peace rather than with baseless legal tactics aimed at intimidating public servants standing shoulder to shoulder with their community. My focus has always been protecting the people of this state, not protecting myself. Families are scared, kids are afraid to go to school, small businesses are hurting, a mother is dead, and the people responsible have yet to be held accountable. That's where the energy of the federal government should be directed, toward restoring trust, accountability, and real law and order, not political retaliation. Now, there is a very small detail in there you might not notice unless you know the context. When you go back and listen to what Governor Tim Walz will typically say, as far as like some fears in the community, a lot of times people of faith will be thrown in there, or religious leaders. You might notice from here on out, I will not be surprised, Governor Tim Walz will not be talking about churches in his statements. And I've talked about this before. The Archbishop of St. Paul in Minneapolis has actually called him out directly and said, this has never happened. We've actually never had a church where ICE agents have gone into it. We've never really had that fear. And so pay attention to statements of Governor Tim Walz. You may notice, I know it's a very small detail, but to me, it's actually bigger than we realize. You might notice in a lot of his statements, he doesn't talk about churches anymore, or even allude to that, mainly in the focus of education and businesses. Small detail, but we go through all the details on this channel. And again, I don't have a response from the mayor of St. Paul.
Here to react to all of this, Todd Blanche, U.S. Deputy Attorney General. It's good to see you, sir, tonight. We're going to get to those agitators in a moment, but I want to start with the subpoenas, okay, with this grand jury investigation. You have Mayor Jacob Frey. He says the government is trying to intimidate local leaders. Obviously, others are going to follow suit. So is that what this is all about?
Well, of course not. Look, we said for the past 2 weeks that the federal government and this administration would not tolerate local officials doing what they were doing and have been doing, impeding federal officers and doing everything they could to encourage rioters to do what they had been doing, which is assaulting and getting in the way of federal officials. We said that we were investigating. I've seen the reports today, Laura. You know, I'm not going to comment on exactly what we're doing in this investigation, but this is exactly what we do when we investigate. We send grand jury subpoenas. We talk to witnesses to understand what's happening, and that's what you see happening right now.
Okay, so again, we'll see what happens with that. This is all very fresh news. It's like literally 24 hours old, not even. And there's a lot of different stories going on in Minneapolis and Minnesota, guys. I mean, these subpoenas, investigations across the board, and then J.D. Vance. We haven't heard too much from Mr. J.D. Vance. He is our vice president, for those of you who are unaware. But he says he's going to Minnesota.
Here's the simple fact here. If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others. Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number two, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with. We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud so that people who need food benefits can get them, but illegal aliens and other fraudsters don't. We have...
What are your guys' thoughts on J.D. Vance? I am curious. Again, we haven't heard too much about him. What do you guys think about J.D. Vance? What do you think he can do in Minnesota? Do you think he'll have a big impact out there?
Over 1,500 subpoenas that the Department of Justice has issued to get to the heart of the fraud ring. We've done almost 100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, is we are creating a new Assistant Attorney General position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud. Now, of course, that person's efforts efforts will start and focus primarily in Minnesota, but it is going to be a nationwide effort because, unfortunately, the American people have been defrauded in a very nationwide way.
Okay, I mean, man, it is all hands on deck in Minnesota. I mean, for real. Now, there is one voice. I'm a little surprised we haven't heard from them in a while. She goes by the name of Pam Bondi. And I've already said, I asked this question yesterday, and the mass majority answered in a way that was not too favorable of Pam Bondi. But my question was, do you think this might be the final chance for Pam Bondi to regain the trust of, like, voters? This, the protest thing, you know, the protesters in the church, people being arrested, people being held accountable. It seems like this is that red line that people are, you know, very upset about, where not too much is getting done.
Tonight, federal prosecutors have served 6 grand jury subpoenas to Minnesota officials, including the governor and the Minneapolis mayor, as part of that investigation into their alleged obstruction of the president's immigration enforcement actions in the Twin Cities. Meanwhile, President Trump's attorney general is getting a first-hand look at the situation there. Tonight, correspondent David Spunt has an exclusive report from Minneapolis. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening to you. We know that federal subpoenas were delivered to the offices of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, State Attorney General Keith Ellison, and 3 other local officials. We spoke exclusively with Attorney General Pam Bondi within the last 90 minutes.
Whether it's a public official, whether it's a law enforcement officer, no one is above the law in this state or in this country. And people will be held accountable. This state is a mess right now. We've seen the chaos, and it's constant. And our men and women in law enforcement deserve to be safe. And that's what we're going to do in Minnesota.
Okay, so you're hearing it from her. She's saying it's going to get done. I'm going to show you guys in a second what Kristi Noem said, and I think Kristi Noem really elevated the pressure super high. I'm going to show you guys that in a second.
The Attorney General landed in Minnesota just a few hours ago, Brett, her first time here on the ground since chaos erupted following the shootings of Renee Good earlier this month. We reported last week both Mayor Frey and Governor Walz are under criminal investigation by the Justice Department for allegedly interfering with federal law enforcement. Bondi said in general terms about the rhetoric from the elected officials criticizing that. Governor Walz, in a statement today, said the Justice Department investigation sparked by calls for accountability in the face of violence, chaos, and the killing of Renee Good does
you guys get it.
Not seek justice.
So, hey, Pam Bondi's on the ground, guys. That is confirmed. Let me get to this Kristi Noem clip for you real quick. Let me pull that up. I truly believe, now to give you context, this was yesterday. I'm going to let you guys decide how you feel about this, but in my opinion, I mean, there is so much pressure now because of this clip. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's my opinion. Get ready. And if you haven't already, by the way, make sure to please like this stream. Leave your comments. I'm reading them as we go. And make sure to please subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Check this out.
And that pastor really did a remarkable thing there, trying to protect his parishioners.
And even the parishioners, I imagine, have felt and feel intimidated. And
they did. And there's going to be arrests in the next several hours, Greta. There will be arrests tied to that. And people.
There's going to be arrest. There's going to be arrest in the next several hours. That was last night.
Intimidated and
they did, and there's going to be arrests in the next several hours, Greta. There will be arrests tied to that, and people will be brought to justice for how they violated the law in that situation.
Well, Don Lemon is a journalist, and so I thought he was going, and so when I first saw it, I assumed he was going in as a journalist covering it. I mean, I go into bad places and ask questions all the time, but when his comment about the white supremacy all of a sudden made me think, well, maybe he wasn't there as a journalist.
Yeah, well, Greta, not only that comment, but the fact that ahead of time, before this even happened, he said that he had conducted some surveillance before they went into this church. He identified individuals that were going in with him that were activists in the work that they'd done in the past. The fact that this entire situation was then posted on the Black Lives Matter website, all of that is something that they're going to be responsible for.
Okay, so again, do not take this as me like going in on Kristi Noem or Pam Bondi. I'm just simply trying to show you guys the collective of this story. What's going on? You know, you have last night Kristi Noem saying arrests are coming within hours. Pam Bondi is saying arrests are coming. At the top of the show, Kash Patel said subpoenas ready to go. There's so much going on here. And look, I think voters, people are paying attention. Just simply trying to show you guys everything that's going on right now. I think you understand. Now, speaking of more investigations, did you guys hear about this?
Follow the money? Well, that's precisely what the House Oversight Committee is doing. They are probing squad member Ilhan Omar's skyrocketing family wealth, Jesse, especially...
Did you guys hear about this? Representative Omar is now being investigated. Let me know what you guys think about this.
In the wake of that $9 billion, some would argue $19 billion, Somali social services fraud scandal that exploded in her district in Minnesota. The oversight chair, James Comer, says his team's lawyers are exploring the extraordinary step of subpoenaing Omar's spouse over his curious business practices. Republicans want to know how the Somali-born Omar and her politically connected husband, Tim Minette, went from being nearly broke to being worth around $30 million in just a year, according to her 2024 disclosure forms. Quoting Comer now, there are a lot of questions as to how her husband accumulated so much wealth over the past 2 years.
And don't worry, we do have a response from Omar, Representative Omar, to be fair to her, what she has to say about it.
Not possible.
Is this the first time she's being investigated for this? Can you guys fact check me on that? I think the question has been raised before, but is this like the actual first time where something might get moved forward?
Possible. It's not. And he's a money guy. Minette and his partner, Will Haler, back in 2022, formed an investment firm, Jesse, named Rose Lake Capital. They had $42 in their bank account at the time, but in a year, up to $25 million, according to Omar's filing. By the way, he also has a wine business that went from next to nothing to millions on its books. Not surprisingly, associates were so perplexed about the irregularities, they brought information and attention to the feds to, look into it. Now, for her part, the Congresswoman has repeatedly, and I say defiantly, denied any wrongdoing while being also careful to criticize the ongoing probe. But
Okay, yeah, so let's get to her response. Congresswoman Omar, this would be more so a response to Secretary Noem, but this would be amazing. Well, let me go to her real quick. Hold on. Let me see if we got an update just to make sure we're accurate here. We cannot normalize this federal occupation of Minneapolis. It is not normal to watch people abducted in front of our eyes, dragged from car windows, pulled from their homes, children left without parents. This is not about immigration. It's about unchecked cruelty. Then she talks about Trump's golden age. And then she responded to Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem talking about 10,000 people arrested. This would be amazing if it wasn't full of lies and propaganda. The only reason she has photos of these criminals in prison is because they were already in prison. Stop terrorizing people with your fake PR about criminals in Minneapolis, because the only people on the streets of Minneapolis you are arresting are law-abiding citizens. So those are the most recent responses from Representative Omar. Let me know how you feel about that. Now, obviously, I think it goes without saying, President Trump probably not the biggest fan of Representative Omar.
Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich and they don't have a job. I was told that Ilhan Omar is worth $30 million. She never had a job. She's a crooked congressman.
All right. So yeah, that's one aspect of this story. Sort of connected, considering Representative Omar, obviously a representative out of Minnesota. But as you can see, there's a lot going on right now. And again, I think to a lot of conservative voters, I don't want to use the word there's a lot of hype, but I think a lot of people are paying attention and there are some expectations. That's what I'm seeing. And on the flip side too, on the Democrat side, there's always been a lot of expectations as far as getting things done, right? Now, I just want to remind everyone, we watched this clip yesterday, but I do think it's very crucial just to remind everyone, because I want to rewatch this just to remind myself, this is basically the standpoint or the line drawn as far as how people feel about that church protest. I think this is a very valuable interview as far as how people feel about it.
How do you believe that the protesters, were they supposed to go into a place of worship as far as you understand about the video that we're seeing?
Absolutely. We went into...
And that is legal. Why? That's the context.
We were invited into the church. The pastor himself is on video calling it a public gathering.
So this is now like the fourth person I have seen in an interview involved with this protest who has said, we were invited in. So my expectation is this is going to be one of the main arguments, in my opinion, one of the main arguments as far as there being no legal basis to prosecute anyone.
Public church service. So we were invited in, and contrary to your opening statement saying BLM protesters busted in, that's absolutely inaccurate. As a matter of fact, most of the people who were a part of the protest were everyday, ordinary citizens who are frustrated with the brutality that we have dealt with at the hands of ICE. And over the weekend, we found out that one of the pastors at the church, David Easterwood, also serves as the director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul at the Whipple Federal Building. Now, as an ordained reverend and as an itinerant preacher, I was shocked. I'm someone who believes very firmly in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and the foundation of that gospel is to love thy neighbor as you love thyself.
And as many of you are pointing out, yes, I mean, that is unequivocally true from the pastor who was standing on the pulpit and to a lot of the people attending service. A lot of you are pointing out, everyone was saying, can you please leave? So obviously we have a bit of a contradiction, if you will, in statements or overview of the situation. On one hand, protesters are saying we were welcomed in. On the other hand, people in the church were saying no. We're not going to go through like individual specific statements from some of these people in church, but there are already people coming out who are saying we wanted them to leave.
When you contrast that to the behavior of ICE agents who have done anything but love their neighbor, as a matter of fact, they have killed their neighbor. When Renee Good was killed by ICE agent Jonathan Ross on January 7th of 2026, we realized that there is a dichotomy at work that is unsustainable.
Okay, so again, I just wanted to remind you guys, as we get closer and closer to these arrests we're being told are going to be made by Homeland Security, and I keep looking over at my phone because I am not ignoring you guys. I'm not trying to be unprofessional. I am quite literally staring at my screen and waiting for someone has been arrested. That is what I am doing right now on your guys' behalf. Because again, we were told last night something's going to happen. Now, is that most of... Yeah. Okay, now, I know you guys are really curious what the governor of Illinois has to say. I just want to play this clip real quick, because a lot of what we're seeing in Minnesota overlaps the talking points and the actions from Illinois. And so if we're seeing it already in 2 states, and we're seeing over in Oregon, you know, they're kind of developing their own way of pushback. We're seeing how a lot of these different states who are sanctuary or anti these mass deportations, how they are acting or responding. So a lot of times we can cross-reference talking points or actions. There's a lot of overlap into how people are reacting.
Show talking a bit about how Governor Walz is in this position where he has put the National Guard on alert. And just in case the President of the United States sends in the military, an Army battalion, into the state of Minnesota.
Who are still on standby, to my knowledge, the 11th Airborne up in Alaska.
And I just wonder what you think about that dynamic, whether it is the U.S. men and women who are serving in the National Guard or in the Army Battalion, or just how to manage that as a governor where you have troops who are on different sides, essentially, of deployment?
He's fomenting this kind of clash that is on its way. Donald Trump thinks that it's okay to call in the military to declare the Insurrection Act, even when it's just about people peacefully protesting. Because as you heard him say, he thinks it's better if there are troops on the streets of American cities. And we know, by the way, that this has nothing to do, in his mind, with how it looks. What he wants is ultimately to control American cities because he wants to affect the elections in 2026. Because he knows he's going to lose if he doesn't do that. And deploying troops, and I mean including CBP and ICE, deploying people who are wearing uniforms and carrying automatic weapons, this is going to intimidate people who want to go vote. And he may very well try to carry out what Michael Flynn said back in 2020. That.
What do you guys think about that? That is the first time I have heard something like that, that the reason for a deployment of troops, according to the governor, is to intimidate voters. Have you guys heard that before?
Donald Trump ought to do, which is seize the ballot boxes so he can count the votes because, there's fraud in the election. Look, they're just making things up at this point. The brave men and women of our armed forces, the brave men and women of our National Guard are being used as pawns, political pawns, by this president.
No question about that. I think they're put in an incredibly untenable position. Let me ask you something. We're in 2026 now, as you fully know, and you have been warning about what Trump is trying to do with the ballot boxes and just basically to make it harder to vote. I heard an interview this morning from one of your fellow governors.
Okay, I think you guys get it. Again, I oftentimes try to evaluate and see what some of these governors or politicians are doing in other states. Quite uniquely in Maryland, I mean, you have one state representative who's trying to make it illegal for an ICE agent hired under the Trump administration to be a police officer. In Oregon, you have states of emergency. In Illinois, you have data gathering to possibly prosecute ICE agents. So, again, we have a lot going on here. Speaking of a lot going on, just to let you guys know, federal operations are occurring around the United States and not only in Minnesota.
Trump is expanding his immigration enforcement operation into Maine. Correspondent Griff Jenkins received exclusive access to the agents there as they rolled into the state. He reports tonight from Portland. Good evening, Griff.
Yeah, good evening, Brett. And frigid temperatures did not stop ICE from hitting the ground running here. Fox had cameras exclusively embedded with what was DHS dubbing an Operation Catch of the Day. Now, some targets proved harder than others to capture. This Sudanese man has more than a dozen criminal convictions in Maine, according to the Homeland Security Department.
By a show of hands, how many people actually knew this was happening? See, a lot of times with the lack of reporting or over-reporting on one situation, it really can affect people's knowledge of what's happening around the United States as far as these deportation operations are concerned. And this topic probably has to be like the top 3 most circulated topics as far as deportations and ICE. Number 1 might be Greenland and that whole situation in Europe, but this is definitely up there.
Those include aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and violation of protection orders. A federal immigration judge had ordered his final removal, but until today, he was roaming free due to Maine's sanctuary policies. And 2 Ecuadorian nationals also caught in troubled waters, facing drunk driving charges. One crossed the border illegally during the Biden administration and was later released.
We have approximately 1,400 targets here in Maine.
Wow.
Ranging from rape of a child, drug trafficking, sexual assaults, simple assaults, driving while under the influence, you name it, they're on the target list.
And although 1,400 doesn't seem like a lot, over in Oregon, I think 1,040 illegal immigrants were arrested in Oregon, and that was still 10 times the amount of the previous year. 2024 had about 10,000 or 1,040. And again, doesn't seem like a lot, but when you look at the logistical issues that you could have in states like Oregon or Maine, trying to get 100 is very difficult. And these are targeted operations with warrants.
Deputy Assistant Director of ICE, Patricia Hyde, says that illegal criminal aliens on the list are also from Senegal, Somalia, Honduras, Guatemala, and the Congo. Portland's mayor is blasting the crackdown, saying this: "We are a welcoming city. There is no evidence, though, of unchecked criminal activity in our community requiring a disproportionate presence of federal agents." And Lewiston's mayor posting an ICE Watch hotline today, available in 9 languages.
They ban their law enforcement from partnering or even communicating with ICE. And when law enforcement doesn't communicate with law enforcement, that puts our communities in danger.
Okay, so yeah, maybe I'll dig a little bit more into this investigation as far as a mayor putting up an ICE hotline. At this point, that is such common news. When I was first covering ICE hotlines or posting on social media that ICE was in the area, 5 months ago, that was the biggest news story in the nation. Nowadays, that's like, oh, again, and then you just scroll on past. Now, I have to talk about this while we're here. I'll probably do a dedicated video on this. And just so you guys know, on my channel, I'm trying to spread the information just so we're not so one-sided here, only focusing on Minnesota. I've been covering the LaMonica McIver case for a very long time. For those of you that are unaware, LaMonica McIver is that member of Congress from New Jersey who allegedly assaulted a Homeland Security officer in Newark, New Jersey. For those of you that are also unaware, she tried to get the charges dropped, and the judge denied that. The case will be proceeding, so make sure to please subscribe to my channel because I will be keeping you up to date with this. And to my knowledge, she is the only member of Congress right now who is facing such charges.
You have, since you were targeted, we have just seen this absolutely escalate.
And I just have to point it out, the start of the interview is, since you were targeted. So the premise of this interview off the bat is the targeting of a member of Congress.
Let me start by asking you about your decision to appeal these charges and the announcement you made today.
Well, Jen, I said from the start, even on this show with you and many others, and whenever I get a chance to talk about it, we are not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to be intimidated out of doing my job. And I'm going to continue to fight this. And this is the next step of the fight for us, right? A local federal judge didn't decide to dismiss the charges. So now we're going to the Third Circuit to appeal that. And it's about me having legislative immunity, not because I'm above the law, but because legislative immunity protects me for doing my job, and it protects members of Congress for doing their job. And
now, I'm just going to be honest with you. I think this is going to be the hardest part for LaMonica McIver to try and prove. She said, I want immunity because, you're blocking us from doing our job. We have that right to do our job, and we are then found immune, which is true. The only problem is, in my personal opinion, is that they got to do the oversight visit. And so when you're arguing we were blocked from doing the visit, but they got to do the visit, in my personal opinion, this might be a little bit of an issue, but who knows? Maybe it won't be an issue and I'm completely wrong. But she got to do the oversight visit.
Donald Trump is just trying to silence me. He doesn't understand. Trying to silence me. Well, no, he does understand. Silencing me means silencing the people that elected me. And that's 800,000 people. And I refuse to be silent. And that's why we're filing this appeal to continue to, have the voice for the people that I represent.
And I've had the pleasure of speaking with you about this a number of times. You have never been silenced, just to be absolutely clear. I've wondered, as you've watched especially the news today, about all of these officials, many of whom you know, who have been subpoenaed by the Department of Justice in Minnesota for also doing their jobs there. What reaction you had to that? What that made you think about?
It made me think about the warning that I put out last May about how this is just...
And by the way, I don't know if you guys are aware, Congresswoman McIver is on the House Oversight Committee of Homeland Security. And there's already been a lot of friction on the House Oversight Committee because, a lot of times people will bring up the fact of you allegedly assaulted a Homeland Security officer. So for the benefit of your knowledge, just so you are aware, she's actually on that Oversight Committee. and she's being charged with assaulting a Homeland Security officer.
Not about a little black girl from the city of Newark representing the people that are assigned to her to represent. It was going to be bigger than this. It's about silencing critics. It's about making sure we can hold him accountable, that this, administration can't be held accountable, and this president can do anything that he wants to do. And it's way bigger than me. And now you see every day someone is being under attack from this Department of Justice, or this president is taking away funding from Democratic states and cities. We constantly see him doing things like this, and he's not going to stop. Every day it gets worse and worse.
Okay, so again, just trying to show you her perspective, how she feels about it. I personally don't think it's the same situation as far as a subpoena is concerned, and cross-referencing it to a possibility of assaulting Homeland Security officers. I don't think it's the same thing, but that's the way that they're viewing it. Here's Nick Sorter. He recently was on Fox News talking about the FBI's involvement with helping him find a camera. And the only reason why I'm even showing you this is because, again, it goes to show how many elements are really on the ground here in Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Waltz and Mayor Fry are willing to do it just to buy political points from the Somalis. I'm sitting there in the street. They come up to my car and tell me, you have to leave, you have to leave. Security guards for the building coming into the street, blocking my vehicle and telling me that it's illegal for me to film on a street. The police end up siding with them. Thankfully, the FBI stepped in, because we all know that Minneapolis PD and Mayor Fry aren't going to do anything to solve this robbery case. I personally spoke with FBI Director Kash Patel shortly before coming on to do this hit. He has been fantastic throughout this entire thing. They have dedicated full resources, full help to finding the person that robbed me here, because what these people need to realize is that they are not they're not going to be able to get away with literally everything, which is how they think right now.
Yeah, for people who don't know, he got his camera stolen. And Cam Higbee actually filmed that whole situation, if you want to go follow Cam Higbee or Mr. Nick Sorter. No, I don't want to watch that. It's boring. Sometimes when I put these shows together, I'm like, yeah, this is a good idea. And then I'm like, nah, it's kind of boring.
Under Joe Biden, we had open borders. We had record high 9% inflation. Gas prices rose to $5 a gallon. Things were not good. And cities like mine, we had illegal immigrants wreaking havoc, these gang members, drug traffickers, etc. Since then, we've successfully worked with President Trump to secure the border. We have 0 illegal crossings. We have gotten rid of those gangs that were wreaking havoc on our streets. We have a safer country. Crime across all sorts of categories have declined. And we've delivered the record-setting tax cuts, which I think is significant. Beginning next week,
Okay, guys, I'm just going to be honest with you. The news is going to be a lot. It's going to be a roller coaster. Sorry, I've been sick for the longest time. I'm doing my best here. We're going to be hearing a lot about this budget coming up January 30th. You're going to be hearing about every single criminal that's been arrested. There's about 10,000. You're going to be hearing about all the good things President Trump did, and then you're going to be hearing about all the bad things. Right now, the biggest talking point from the Democrats is this idea of wanting reform. So I don't want to bore you guys with all those talking points. I might do a whole dedicated video on that. But yeah, this is the main relevant points right now. Subpoenas, the pushback from protesters currently, and the pushback from leadership, from the mayor of Minneapolis, from Governor Tim Walz, the mayor of St. Paul, that attorney general. And when we get an arrest, because we're being told there's going to be one, I will be live. I am glued to my phone to let you guys know when something actually happens. So when that does happen, I hope you guys do tune in, and I will get that information for you immediately. I mean, it seems like every single person right now is in Minneapolis, from Pam Bondi to like all these FBI elements, DOJ elements. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know how confident you guys are in this, but I'm just here to give you guys the news. Don't get mad at me. But yeah, that is pretty much what I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream, and I hope you guys have been enjoying these live streams, and I hope this time slot is okay for you guys as far as it being a morning show to sort of an afternoon-ish show. Yep, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and again, I'm going to do my best to give you guys the most relevant update. So, pay attention, we might get an arrest today, or something might be happening. Something. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for everything. Make sure to please subscribe, leave your comments, and please pray for peace. We need that right now. I always try to be as fair as possible. You guys know that, and I hope I was able to do that for you guys. And to all the new people here, God bless you. To all the old, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you all probably later. Thank you guys for everything. God bless. Thank you.